Hey everyone, today I'm going to walk you through how to make this TV console slash TV stand. It's a pretty simple build, and the nice thing is it'll fit a PS5, which with its ginormous size is not very common right now. I needed a new TV stand that would fit my new console, and so I figured I'd build it and let you guys see how to do it. So let's get started. Before we get too far into this build, I wanted to just quickly tell you guys, please make sure you pause if I'm talking too fast. I know I go quick, but I'd rather have it be a short and concise video that you can just pause and go back on than the 2-hour video it was before I edited it down. First, head to Home Depot, Lowe's, or wherever you get your wood from. First thing you're going to need is some 2x4s. I had one at home already, so I only grabbed 2, but you actually need 3. Then you need 6 2x2s by 8. I could not get them apart. As you'll see, we're struggling with them, so we ended up just getting 9 of them, because it's always nice to have extras, and a lot of times they're warped. So we got 9. You only need 6. Then I went to the 2x6s by 8 feet long and grabbed 3 of those. That's going to be for the tabletop of the console. So try to find some nice looking ones. Then I went and got some plywood. I got a nice piece of 3/4 plywood or 5/8 plywood, whatever you prefer as far as thickness goes. And then I take it over to the people who cut it. Now, this basically is going to simulate a 1x12. So I had him cut it for me, as you can see, into 12-inch pieces. And I had him do it all the way, and I think I had one extra piece that was a little under 12 inches, because I did a true 12-inch. So he gave me 3 12-inch by 8. So basically 3 1x12s, and then one extra piece that was like 11 inches. So it's nice to have some scraps from that, but we'll use a lot of the 12-inch stuff on this plan. So as far as the actual build, we can get started here, and we're going to make some cuts. So the first cut we're going to make is on these 2x4s, and we're going to cut them at 12 inches. For now, you're going to need 5 of these, so 5 2x4s at 12 inches. The cut list and the shopping list, I'll go ahead and put in the description below, in case you're having trouble keeping up. That way you can just look down below in the description and you'll know what you need. So what I'm doing here is I'm just lining up my cut, and I'm usually pretty careful as I line up my first cut to make sure that it's just to the right of the blade so that I'm getting the correct cut. What I like to do, and people do this different ways, I grab a piece of scrap lumber and I use it as a stop. I kind of line it up, and then I take a clamp and I clamp it on down to the table so that I can make a bunch of cuts in a row. That, you know, anytime I try to measure each piece of wood, if I'm doing like 5 12-inch cuts like this, I often mess it up. So I find it's much easier to just go ahead and set up a stop and do all the cuts to that one stop consistently, so you know you're going to get the exact 12 inches each time, and everything's going to be consistent. So that's what I'm doing here. And I have a couple helpers here today. I've got my brother and my daughter helping me out. So, you know, I'm just kind of doing an assembly line where I do the cuts and I hand them the wood and we get it all taken care of. So, okay. So I'm just going to go grab some 2x2s that I got. And you're going to need to cut 2 of them at 12 inches. So same stop that you had set up for your 2x4. If you left it, that would be great, because then you can make sure you got it exactly right. Once you get those 2 at 12 inches, you're going to need to take more 2x2s and cut them at 30 inches. So you'll see me here marking my board at 30 inches, and then I'll go ahead and set up my stop again and just make these cuts. And again, I said 12 of them, so it's a lot of cuts. So you might as well set up the stop. It's really worth it. Now, some people do screw down their stop into the tabletop. You can do that way too. I just don't like it because it makes a ton of holes and you have to replace the plywood. So I choose not to do it that way, but you know, you can. Here I'm taking 2 boards at a time and cutting them. You know, it just speeds up the process. So you can definitely do it this way. Now at this point, I realize that 2x2 is too warped. I'm going to get a bad cut if I do it, so I put it aside so I can use it later for smaller pieces. You definitely end up having to do that sometimes with 2x2s, which is why I said I bought 9 just to be safe, because they often stink. So yeah, just really quick running through these 12 cuts. You can do the same. You can pause if you're trying to follow along. But yeah, just really quickly cutting out 12 of them at 30 inches. And again, I've got my little helper there. So up next, what you're going to want to do is grab your 2x4s again, set up a new stop, this time at 28.5 inches. So you're going to want to cut 6 of these 2x4s at 28.5 inches. So again, it's the same process again and again. You make your measurement, you draw a line, you set it up, you clamp down your stop, and then you go ahead and do your production of cuts. And again, I'm doing 6 of them at 28.5 inches. Okay, so once you have those 2x4s cut, go ahead and grab your 1x12 that you had cut and ripped down at the Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you got it done. You can do that yourself if you have a table saw, or you can just buy 1x12s. You're going to want to cut these 1x12s at 63.5 inches. I put them both on top of each other, and I was going to just cut them together, but then I decided not to because it felt like it was moving. So I went ahead and set up a stop at 63.5 inches and cut them one at a time just to be safe and make sure I got the correct and accurate cuts. So you can do whichever way you prefer. Like I said, if you want, just buy 1x12s. It's easier, but it costs a lot more money. So it's nice to get the plywood ripped down. Okay, next up you want to grab your 2x6s. These are going to be the tabletop of the, TV stand. Go ahead and cut those. They're going to be the longest pieces you cut. They're going to get cut at 74.5 inches, all 3 of them. So again, set up a stop, cut them 73.5 inches, and set those aside. You won't need those till quite a bit later. We got quite a bit of building before we get to the tabletop. But, really, in the end, it's a pretty easy build. So hang in there, follow along, and we'll get this thing done, and you're going to have a nice new TV stand before you know it. Okay, so we have all our wood cut. I've laid it out on this table. I've got my 2x6s, 2x2s, 2x4s, and 1x12s all cut. And so now I'm just going to clear off a little space and set up the frame. Basically, you're going to build 2 of these. They're going to be the sides of the TV stand. They will be identical. So everything you see me doing now, you'll be doing twice. We're not going to walk through both of them, but basically that's how it's going to work. So set up 3 of your 28.5 inch 2x4s and grab your 2x2s that were 30 inches and get ready to pocket hole those because they're going to attach to those long 2x4s. Those 2x4s are going to be your legs, basically, of this table. So those are going to be the legs, and the 2x2s will be the cross sections that attach them. What I'm doing here is I'm adjusting my Kreg jig to 1.5 inches so that I can drill pocket holes into the 2x2s. You will need a Kreg jig or something that does this sort of hole, pocket hole, to do this project. So that's definitely a required tool. Hopefully you have one. If not, you probably should go grab one. They're very helpful, and I use mine all the time. So if you do have a Kreg jig, just go ahead and line it up to 1.5 inches and tighten the bit up, and then also adjust that back part so that the wood thickness says 1.5 on the side there. I'm going to have my brother do it, so he's just going to grab the 2x2. He's going to lock it in place and go ahead and drill a hole, as you can see. Now with the 2x2s, we're going to do one on each end of the 2x2s, and then the drill is going to fall apart because my drill stinks. And then once you have the pocket holes, you want to line it up between 2 of the 2x4s. And go ahead and measure. You want it 3 inches above the bottom, right? Or 3 inches up from the bottom. So you see me marking 3 inches on both sides so that we can have it level. And then I'll line up my 2x2 at the 3-inch spot and pocket hole it in with my Kreg screws. And you've got your Kreg bit there, and you see me just going ahead and drilling that in to each of the pocket holes, like so. And again, lining it up to that line, making sure it's flush on both edges so that it's a nice, beautiful console table when we're all done with this. There's my foot. It's very lovely. All right, scoot it over and go ahead and I grab the other one. Like I said, it's nice to have a helper to sit there and drill the pocket holes for you so you can keep moving, get the project going nice and quick. Now, as far as the next shelf, it's 17 inches up. Now, I wanted mine to fit my PS5. You can have this shelf be as tall as you want. I went with 17 inches because I want to be able to fit a PS5, maybe an Xbox, the new Xbox, once I can acquire one. They're kind of hard to get right now. So from the top of that bottom 2x2, I'm doing 17 inches up. So it's a 17-inch gap, 17-inch opening between the 2x2s that I've set up here. And again, same idea, line it up, make sure everything's flush, and go ahead and screw in the pocket holes so you have that 17-inch gap between the two. I was having some issues with my Kreg bit. It was a little bit stripped, so it kept stripping my screws. It was pretty annoying. Eventually, I ended up finding another Kreg bit in my tool chest, so it worked out. But There I'm measuring just to make sure I got the 17 inches right on both sides and that everything's square and level. And in the background you hear my kid laughing hysterically. So again, doing it on the other side, 3 inches up and then 17 inches from the top of that 2x2 so that I can have an even setup there. And this next 30-inch 2x2, I have to grab a hammer, I believe, yeah, because it was a little bit of a tight fit. So hammer it in there, give it a little abuse, and then go ahead and make it flush with the very top of the 2x4. So yeah, once you have them flush, go ahead and use pocket screws and screw them in to the 2x4s. Now I did the pocket holes on top because it's easy to get to, and the tabletop's going to cover it anyways, so you might as well have the holes as hidden as possible. If you do try to do it from the bottom, it's going to be really hard to get your drill in, and there's really no reason. So yeah, easy. So yeah, right here I'm grabbing my PS5 remote and making sure this shelf is going to be wide enough to fit a controller in it, because I really wanted to put my controllers in the top part and then the console in the bottom part. So had my daughter bring that out to me just so I could verify the fitment of the actual controller, and everything was good. So yeah, completed one side of the table. Well, TV stand. So basically you're just going to do the same thing again because you need two. And I did put some on-screen prompts here. They're probably not necessary since I'm talking you through it, but I figured it might be helpful to some people who don't speak English to be able to, you know, translate. So the next step is going to be cut out 4 pieces of 2x2 at 17 inches. These are going to be a divider for the TV stand, just to kind of separate out different areas that you saw in the actual finished product. So I set up a stop and I cut out 4 of these at 17 inches because I'm going to need 2 on each side. All right. So now that I have these done, I can bring them over to my side piece. Now, mind you, I've already built 2 sides. You can see in this video that I have one side up against the wall and one side on the table. So you probably will need a pause after building your first side, build the second one, and then come back and finish the video. These 2x2s do need pocket holes on each side, and you need to center it. Well, I mean, really it's optional, but if you want to follow this plan exactly, I centered it, and for me that was, 15 inches of center because 30-inch piece. So I think it's basically 14 1/4 and 14 1/4, something along those lines. Just use common sense and go ahead and center that as I have done here, and then attach with pocket holes. Pocket hole screws, not the actual holes. I've got my brother back there putting more pocket holes and things. Pretty much everything needs pocket holes, so I figured I'd put him to work while I went ahead and attached everything. So yeah, so I attached these on both sides so that I can have the 2 dividers, and then I sanded. I sanded both sides here. I kind of sanded as I go. Sanding is the least fun, but I will tell you this, the more work you put into sanding, the better your final product is going to look. I used, I believe, a 120 and then a 220 grit pad on this. I have been lazy before and just done a 150 and just called it a day. But again, the finer you go, the better looking and more, beautiful and nice to touch your project's going to be. I was going for sort of a rustic look, so I didn't feel like I needed to go to like a 400 or 600 grit or anything like that. Obviously, I'm cutting out a bunch of the sanding because it took forever. And I'm adjusting my Kreg jig to 5/8 so that I can put some pocket holes in this 5/8 thick plywood. I'm going to do it all the way around the 1x12s, and I'm doing it on both of them. These are going to be shelves, and they are going to attach to those side pieces that we built a minute ago. So basically, you're just going to see me adding these all over, and I might even cut some of this out because, it's going to take forever. So there you have it. You've got the 1x12 with the pocket holes up, down, left, center, etc. And then I go ahead and I repeat it on the other 1x12. All right, so now this one is done. So I will set it aside with the other. Actually, no, I don't set it aside with the other. I go ahead and attach it, of course. I had to go grab my wood glue, but it was a little bit, ruined. So I had to cut open the bottle and do it by finger, which is not the ideal way to do wood glue, but it's functional. So I sloppily apply that all the way across this 2x2s and 2x4s, and I went ahead and laid the 1x12 down flat on it. Had my brother held it and attached 3/4 inch pocket screws to each of these pocket holes. I will tell you that without a helper, this is very, very difficult. The helper doesn't need to be strong or anything like that. They just need to hold this thing steady while you attach it. These are not the most rugged connections because they are fairly small. And the weight of this 1x12 is pretty hefty, so it can kind of fall and tip over and then pull loose. So until you have it a little bit more secure with the 2x2s on the side, it's really good to have helpers. I had two. So go ahead and attach that. Now go ahead and grab your 12-inch 2x2. You're going to want to connect that with a 2.5-inch pocket screw to the leg, and then an 1.25-inch pocket screw to the shelf itself, or the shelf to this. As you can see, I'm connecting it here. So it's a little confusing, but really it's just if you're going through that 1x12, you want to make sure to use a shorter screw. If you're 2-inch by 2-inch, you want to use a longer screw. So I went ahead and attached those 2x2s to both ends, and now it can kind of stand on its own. As you can see, we were able to let go of it and it didn't fall over. I really think you should be holding it or have someone holding it or clamp it until you get those 2x2s attached on each end. Again, I'm sloppily applying glue here so that we can attach this to the other side. The way we decided to do it was to go ahead and fumble around a bit until we could decide. So I had my brother hold it up like this. I flipped over the other side and pushed it together. This felt like the easiest way to do it. There might be a better way, but this is what we ended up doing. So right now I'm just lining up the 1x12 with my finger to make sure it's flush with the top of that 2x2. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the Kreg screw to attach the 2x2 to the other side first. I like the way the screws feel when they go in. They feel like they're actually providing a good amount of support. So I like to start with those and get a nice solid connection before I do all the 1.25-inch screws along the thinner 1x12 shelf. So, my brother is having some issues getting it in because of that back board. I'm sure if you're doing this and following along, you might have similar issues. It's a bit... Right here, we were just kind of thinking about how secure it felt. It didn't feel super secure, and so we decided to tilt it on its side to get a more, tough attachment or a simplified way to screw them in, because we're really struggling to get the screws in the way we had it. So laying on its side helped, and so that's what we decided to do. So here you'll see me taking glue and putting it on the bottom part to repeat that same exact step with the other 1x12 as the bottom shelf. So my brother holds it. I use screws and start attaching it to the bottom 2x2 flush with the top of it. At the end of these is not 2x2s. Remember on that middle shelf we had 2x2s. We only cut 2 of those at 12 inches. What we do have here is 2x4s. It's kind of sturdy, and take your 12-inch 2x4s and put them at the end. So same thing as the 2x2, it's just going to have 2 pocket holes. If you haven't pocket holed it, go ahead and do that now, and use your screws to screw that into the other leg, and you'll have a pretty secure bottom shelf there after you do this. Now, so don't skip that step. You want to get everything screwed in and connected as thoroughly as possible and nice and glued up. So you'll see me connecting the other one here. My brother's kind of just handing me the screws I need. And, it's starting to come together here. So got those all attached. We went ahead and flipped it upside down at this point because we were really having trouble getting some of those screws in. So sometimes you kind of need to change, an element of where everything is located to get things working properly. So we flipped it upside down. That was, just what we needed to get those 2x4s attached. And there we have the upside down shelf that is upside down. As you can remember, we did attach those 17-inch 2x2s, and those are going to be for this middle divider here. Now what you need to do, which you have not done yet, so I'm kind of jumping the shark here, is you need to cut out this same board. You need to use your 1x12 scraps and cut this out. This will be 17 inches because it's going as that divider with the 17-inch 2x2. So go ahead, pause the video, cut out 2 of these 17-inch out of your scrap 1x12. And then put pocket holes on both sides like I did, and go ahead and attach this in between as a divider for your 2 compartments, basically, for the shelf. Now, what you'll see me doing here is cheating. I got lazy and I just kind of, instead of using the pocket holes on the backside, there was a clear backside for me. There were some issues with some of the wood on one side, so I said this is definitely going to be the back. People aren't going to see it. So instead of using the pocket holes, I'm just going to drill a bunch of screws straight through the 2x2 into the 1x12, just to add extra durability, stability, and all that. You do not need to do that if you want to make it beautiful on both sides. Just stick with the pocket screws. But like I said, I wanted some extra stability. Knew I wouldn't be turning it around, so I just kind of cheated here and just I actually did longer screws to make it even more rugged. All the way through, lined it up. You know, there is a risk here that you could miss and kind of, you know, get a screw outside where it's supposed to be. Once I decided to do this, I went ahead and reinforced the shelves too on the back side, just to add some extra strength to them as well, because I figured I already had gone ahead and done it. Might as well do it all over and have it as strong as possible. Again, this is optional. I just did it because I wanted it to be as strong as it could possibly be. And I kind of put them all over the back here to make every shelf, you know, as stable as possible. Now you have three 12-inch 2x4s left. Pocket hole both sides of those and get ready to attach them to the top of this thing. I flipped it over right side up because remember it was upside down a minute ago, and then it was sideways, and now it's right side up. And these will just go one on each end and then one centered. These are just simple 12-inch 2x4s with pocket holes on both sides. Remember, you already cut these at the beginning, so it's not like that last step where you had to magically conjure up 17-inch 1x12s because I forgot to tell you to cut them earlier. Sorry about that. All right, so get those all attached and then get ready to cut your side walls. So again, I still had some scrap 1x12, which was the nice thing about buying the plywood instead of just 1x12s. So I took my scrap 1x12 and I decided I was going to do side walls for this shelf. I wasn't originally planning on doing it, but I liked the idea, so I went ahead and got ready to do it. Now, I would say cut to your measurement on this. Just kind of measure that opening and decide how big you need this. Mine was 22.5 inches, I believe. Yeah, so 22.5 inches for me. Definitely measure your own, make sure you got it right. And go ahead and pocket hole one side of that or two sides of that if you're not cheating. Remember, I cheated a little bit, so I'm just going to go through the back again. You want it to be a tight fit like this, and that's why I say measure your own, make sure it fits for you. You might have to adjust it a little bit, but get it, you know, to completely fill that thing. Remember, it's 12 inches thick already, so you know the 12-inch part is correct. Really, you just need to get that length measurement right and then drill it in. One thing I'm not showing is I was sanding these between steps. So before I actually even attached this, I sanded it because I hate trying to sand stuff like that once it's already attached. So I went ahead and pre-sanded that and then attached it. Again, cheat method, just going through the back. You can use pocket screws here, just like you did in many of the other locations, but I just didn't feel like doing it. This side for me was the same measurement. It should technically be the same measurement because, you know, everything is square. If it's not the end of the world, you know, just cut it to fit. Again, mine was 22.5 inches, but yours might be 23. Just make sure you measure it. Now you want to set your Kreg jig back to 1.5 inches because we've been doing a lot of 3/4 inch stuff. And go ahead and drill some pocket holes in the 2x6s. We're going to now build the tabletop because that's the order I decided to do things in. So I took my 2x6s and I did 1.5 inch pocket holes all down one side of one of them and one side of another one. And then I dropped my drill bit because that happened like 30 times during this build. I think I need a new driver. But yeah, so I did that on two of them, and then the middle one didn't need any pocket holes. So basically you've got your 3 2x6s, do holes all the way down one side of one, all the way down one side of another, and then the center one with no holes, and then lay them flat on a surface like we've done here, and screw them together. 2.5 inch pocket screws. You know, it's good to try to make sure everything is tight and snug and lined up really well and there's no gaps. You can use clamps for this. If you have a buddy, they can hold it together for you. I've done it with clamps usually, but since I did have a helper, it was kind of nice to just have him hold it together while I screwed everything in and built the tabletop. So pretty quick, simple. The tabletop is built. You can stop right here if you want, or you can keep going. I decided I wanted one more little shelf on each side, so I decided to keep going, but you know, right there you've got a really nice console table. Go ahead and measure the distance. For me it was, what did I just say, 14.25? Yeah, 14.25. And I decided to cut some 2x2s, 4 of them, at 14 1/4, and I'm going to use those to build an additional shelf. I wasn't planning on doing this originally, but once I saw it, I was like, yeah, it really needs to be broken up a little more, and it'd be nice for it to hold some more of my consoles. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 extra shelves, and that's what we're doing here now. So go ahead, take your 2x2s, cut them at 14 1/4, add 1.5 pocket holes to each side. If you've been sanding along the way, right after you do the pocket holes, it's a good time to sand again. Sand, sand, sand. Get those hands nice and numb. That's what happens to mine. So yeah, once that's good, you can set those aside. You're going to need another one because it's going to have a support on the side as well. So I didn't realize till just now. Then I realized it, so I cut a 12-inch 2x2. You'll need 2 of those, 1 for each shelf. So once you have your 12-inch 2x2 cut out, bring it on over and put it up next to your 14 1/4-inch 2x2s. That's basically how it will live once it's all done. Go ahead and put your pocket holes. If you're going to sand, now is the time to sand. And then that 12-inch will go as a cross piece right here. You'll see me messing around with the measuring tape. I was trying to figure out how big I wanted this shelf. I wanted it to be able to fit a PS4. So I ended up doing, I think, 4 inches from the bottom of that 2x2 above it. So again, this is completely optional how wide you want this shelf. You know, you can kind of customize. That's the nice thing about making your own furniture is you can decide what you want. For me, though, I decided on a 4-inch shelf, so measure 4 inches down, put a little mark, and do that on both sides, the back side and the front side here. I had my brother do the other side for me. He marked it, and then he helped me line it up, and then I used the screws to attach it to the side there, like so. So once you have that, you can go ahead and cut out the 1x12 for the actual shelf itself. Again, mine's going to be the same as those 2x2s, which was 14 1/4. It's already 12 inches wide, so we know the width is right. So pocket hole it up, sand it up, and get ready to attach it as another shelf. Now, for some reason, I lost the footage where I attached this one, but the next morning I woke up and did another one, so we will cut to that in a second. But yeah, basically, what I started off by doing was attaching the 1x12 to the 2x2s I had cut like this, and then once it was all one piece, I slid it in to the actual console table and attached it via pocket screws on the bottom there, where you can see those pocket holes. So right now I'm just getting that one piece and then put it in, and voila, it's the next morning because for some reason I lost that footage. This is me working on the other shelf for the other side though, so it's not a big deal. You'll still get to see how it works. Actually, I had a bunch of issues attaching this one, but you'll see that in that 1/4-inch 2x2s. Flip it on over, sand it if you haven't, and then get ready to attach it to the actual console table. Here it is. Here I am attaching that 12-inch piece again, 4 inches down. So on the other side, like I said, the alternate side's already done. And then I slide in that shelf and attach the shelf via these pocket screws and pocket holes that I set up earlier. And again, you can see that line where I did 4 inches down. So pretty easy, pretty simple, no big deal. Except for the fact that it was a big deal and I could not get it in. I ended up having to, I believe I had to flip over the whole entire thing eventually to actually get this working. I really had trouble fitting my drill in. And if you're going to do this too, you may have similar issues. Especially if your drill bit is all messed up like mine was. It was really stripping out screws every couple of seconds. Handed it over to my brother to get him to try to do it, and he had similar issues. So now it's upside down. Work smarter, not harder. Once we flipped it upside down, we could see what we were working on. It was super easy, went right in, and it was no biggie at all. Remeasured just to make sure we're at the 4 inches, and, you know, like I said, his side went in simple, my side went in simple. Call it done. Next step is finishing. You can finish however you want. My base, I did a stain called Briar Smoke. It's at Home Depot, and you can kind of see the can over there. I think it's Varathane. Yeah, it is. And I did one coat of that. You know, blow it off, get all the dust off it before you do this. I started off with a paper towel. It was kind of getting some little paper towel bits in the stain. I didn't like it. So eventually I switched over to a t-shirt. I am not going to show you the whole staining process because finishing is like sanding, not too exciting to watch, and it takes forever. It's not very fun to do either, to be honest with you. It's my least favorite part of building, but it is what makes the thing look like a final product, so you got to do it. So I did decide to do the stain on the bottom. I did not put any poly or Waterlox or anything like that to protect the base. I know that's a big no-no, but if I'm not going to be, constantly putting cups on something or eating off something, a lot of times I'll skip the poly, I'll skip the Waterlox and just leave the base of a piece of furniture as it is. It makes it easier to retouch it up and stuff. I may end up adding poly at some point. Oh, at this point, I wanted to attach the tabletop, so we're kind of cutting ahead. The whole thing is stained on the bottom at this point. I haven't touched the tabletop yet, but the bottom is completely stained. Realized I need to connect the tabletop. So to do this, I cut out two 12-inch 2x4s. And these are going to go on the bottom of the tabletop. You can see I was just kind of making sure they would fit. Go ahead and drill pocket holes on each side of these. Sand them up. You don't need to sand both sides. I would just sand the side with the pocket holes because the other side is never going to be seen by anybody unless they take apart your table for some reason. So I stained them too because I'd already stained the rest. I figured I'd stain them so I didn't have to reach up under. And then I set them up on the tabletop. And I've even slowed down the camera here. I know we've been in fast motion this whole time, but I wanted to give myself a little time to explain. This is going to be the thing that kind of lines up your table and holds it in place. So I wanted to make sure you've got to measure it and make sure that it's all square. So what we're doing is we measured the distance of the table, and I believe it's, 2x6 times 3. Anyways, measure that, and then go ahead and line up that 2x4 so it's the same distance from the top and the bottom, and then equal distance from the end. So we did 2¼ inch top and bottom from the edges, and then this long measurement I think is 18¼ It can kind of be what you want, as long as it's going to fit in the openings that are under it. You just got to be consistent. It can be 17 and 17. It can be 19 and 19. Just has to be consistent so that the tabletop sits flush. The more important measurement is that one from the top, on the narrow side of this. But yeah, the more important measurement is the 2¼ 2¼ at the top of that 2x4 and 2¼ at the bottom of that 2x4, so that your table sits evenly when you actually attach it. So once you have that, you can drill some 1.5 Kreg screws or pocket screws straight down into the 2x4 into the tabletop. It won't go half. And those pocket holes are for actually connecting it to the base. So you don't want to use those right now. You want to just drill holes or drill the screws straight down into it. You need to repeat it on the other end. Same measurements is what I did, which was 2¼ 2¼ and then 18 5/8 and 18 5/8. Once you've got those both in, get a buddy, flip it over. Should slide right into it and fit perfectly. And, just make sure that you're the same distance on both ends from it so that it's all square, which we did here. And then you take some more pocket screws and attach this tabletop to the base there. So basically you're going to take pocket screws, go into this 2x4, into the side wall there, that 2x2, and you're going to do that 4 times. So 4 on this board and 4 on the other board. And, I'm not going to show all of it, but you can kind of see us do a couple. Well, this is a pretty nice angle here. Huh? It's a pretty good angle. Me and my brother realized it wasn't quite in as far as we wanted. Like, we didn't really like the way it looked. So once we started bringing the house, we went and got some more screws and just went up into the side here, into that side 2x2, up into the tabletop. And we did 3, 1 for each board. The reason you see all that dust there is because I did a countersink first. If you have a countersink bit, it'll help hide the screw heads. I did not get a good angle with my camera here, but you definitely get the idea that I'm taking through 3 of the screws and going into each board through that 2x2 on the outside edge there, just to provide a little bit more security to the table. So once that's all tied in and locked down, I went ahead and stained the top here. I use something called weathered gray. It's another Varathane color, I believe. You can see the can there. It's yellow, whichever one's the yellow one at Home Depot. So yeah, I went ahead and took that weathered gray and applied it all over the top of this. And, I liked the way that it looked. It wasn't like too over the top. Once I had that applied, I went and grabbed, that was a dirty rag, so I had to go back and grab a different rag. I grabbed Waterlox. I love to use Waterlox for this sort of thing. Now, I let that stain dry overnight. This is the next day. Once it's nice and dried, take your Waterlox, apply it all over. It's just so forgiving, Waterlox. And the way I finish a table is I do 3 coats of Waterlox. I spread out the application either probably by like 8 hours. So I'll do Waterlox, wait 8 hours, Waterlox, wait 8 hours, Waterlox. And I don't sand in between. I'm a pretty lazy finisher, but I find I get a good result this way. And then once that's dried for the 3rd time, I let it dry overnight. And the next day I take a brown paper bag to it, and I just rub the top of it with a brown paper bag, and that gets off all the kind of jaggies and the little dust particles. A lot of people do like 50 coats of finish, and you know what? You get what you put into it. That'll make a beautiful finish, but this is good enough for me. Here's the final product in my house with my PS5 in it and all my other consoles, set up for Christmas because Christmas is coming. And I think it came out great. I think it's a really beautiful console table, super useful and practical. I think the top looks great. It feels great once I took that paper bag to it. And in the end, you get a really nice TV stand. And like I said, I put my PSVR in that big opening. I could put an Xbox Series X. There's a bunch of additional space that I haven't even used yet. So I'm pretty excited about how it came out. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and make sure you subscribe.